goals, okay, where we're going. The goals for the residential school, and this is said straight out, you know, was to kill the Indian in the child. And that was why residential school was set up. And that's exactly what they worked towards. And when I think about my school situation, I think about how I have done in my life. I've gotten this far with my parents because I had my parents' support. There were many times I didn't think I had their support, but I have it. And my parents taught me a lot, you know. Even though residential school was tough, it was one of the toughest phases of my life. You know, I don't know if I'll ever get over residential school. I'll certainly learn from it and I'll certainly move on from it. But the scars, the insecurities, they did a really good job on instilling that in people, you know. And even in me in some situations, I think about the things that they've done and you know, how I am now in my life with my children. One of the things is, you know, because it was school where the abuses happened to me. It was school where I was supposed to be going to learn things. I was supposed to be going, you know, I've talked to people who went to residential school for 13 years. Well, if you go to school today for 13 years, you come out of there with a diploma. You come out of there with something saying you graduated. So what happened to these people who went to school for 13 years? They don't come out with a diploma. They come out with grade 3 education. And yet we were sent to school to learn. And they call it school, you know? So today, how does that affect me when I hear school and my son? My son's in grade 7. If he goes to school and he has a hard time at school, and he just wakes up and says, well, you know, I don't want to go today because I just don't want to go, I don't make him go. If there's teachers in the school who I think are giving him a hard time, I will go there and I'll let them know not to give him a hard time. That's not always fair to my son and his learning. But in my mind, it's like I go back to Lower Post, I go back to Kildare, I go back to Yukon Hall, and I go, this is how we were treated in school. How can they tell me that's different today, you know? But it is different. It is different. But to recognize that and to be comfortable with it and let him be in school, I have a hard time with it. It is. It's very hard. Situations like this, like, you know, a place like the Teen Parent Center. Well, in residential school, there were also pregnancies in residential school. Now you look at it and you go, well, who the hell was getting pregnant there? It was the young girls. It was the nuns. And then we go a little bit further and talk about, well, what happened? Because no babies ever came out of those schools.
What happened to the babies?
I've been told stories about the babies being killed. Brand new babies not coming out of there, you know?
That must be horrifying.
It is. And can you imagine the parent living with that?
Yeah, I mean, living with that for the rest of your life, knowing that your baby was taken away from you.
And it's in school.
Yeah, and that's why I totally understand where you're coming from with the school thing. Like, it would be very hard.
Yeah. So today when I see places like the Teen Parent Center, and I see young women going to school with their babies, it's like, do it. Finish what you're doing. Finish what you're doing and get that diploma, because you know what? It's the babies you need to be there for. It's those little ones that we need to be there for, because the little ones aren't going to grow up on their own and do well. And you know, that's one of the things that when I was growing up, after, you know, I came out of residential school and sort of got into growing up and the stuff that I came back to, and it was really, really hard to try to get ahead. You know, I did my own drinking thing. I've done my drugging thing. I've kind of, you know, not committed, but tried to commit suicide. If I committed it, I'd be not here, right? But I've gone that whole road, you know, like I've done those things. And the one thing that really has gotten me through, I think, were my parents, especially my dad. My dad always told me, you know, to always do the best we could and work as hard as we can. And, you know, when we have a job, do the best we can at that job. Don't ever let anybody come back and say, you know, you didn't do the best you could. He always said, you know, do the best you can. Do the best you can. And one of the other things, and this has stayed with me my whole life, is he said, you know, you don't have to go out and brag about who you are and what you do. He said, you just do the best you can and people will do it for you. And you know, I'd sit there and go, wow, it's my work, I should, but you know what, it's true. You don't need to go and brag about what you do. All you have to do is do the best you can and work hard. And work hard, you know, and that's what I've done. That's what I've done, and I thank my dad all the time, because I say it's my dad who got me to where I am today. It was his words of encouragement that got me to where I am today. And most importantly, you know, he never let us wallow in the residential school thing. We went, we endured what we endured, we got through what we got through. I kind of went to counseling and had to do it that way, but you know, in the end, I look at where I am in my life, I look at where my kids are today, I look at how well we're doing, and you know, residential school does have its effects on me, but not to where it could be. Not to where it could be. There are so many people who res school has just totally destroyed their lives. And you know, whenever I go out and I talk to the kids or talk to anybody, I always talk about Salvation Army. I talk about the people who go and sit in front of the liquor store. You know, and it's like, if a person had to live with abuse, you know, and sexual abuse from the age of maybe 4 to when they got out of residential school, then how on earth do you move on from that? If you have no encouragement, I was very lucky. I had my mom and dad. And I'm not saying that, you know, people are not lucky or that they didn't have their parents. But I just know that it was my mom and dad who put me to where I am today. And I thank them for that, because if they weren't there or did as much as, you know, they could talk to me as much as they did, I could have totally went down that road too. And it's like the residential school road, you know. You're totally always told you're no good. I mean, you know, one story, it's kind of funny because when I was a little kid, we had, at the end of Lower Post, the school went this way, and there were teacher houses at the end here. And I often wonder, you know, how some of those teachers felt when they would come to these schools and they'd have their kids with them. One of the teachers, he had 2 little girls, and my sister and I were in this school. And we used to always go play with those little girls. Like the dad would, you know, it's like they're right there, right? So every day we were usually allowed out about once a day. So whenever we'd go out, well, they would see the kids playing. So they would come out onto the lawn and they'd sort of watch the kids. Well, my sister and I saw this, so we were like going over, and kids are curious, right? We went over, we started talking. Pretty soon they started pulling out their toys, and pretty soon, you know, we're having little tea parties on their lawn, and well, they had nice toys, right? So they pull their toys out, and you know, one thing about kids, they don't notice color. They don't notice people are different from each other. It's us who puts that in their minds. It's not the kids. It's us. It's us who tell our kids they're brown, not good. They're white, not good. It's not the kids. Kids are totally, that's right. And it's that attitude. How you think and you treat people is how your kids are going to treat people. How you think and how you are, whether you're kind or mean or miserable, your kids watch that. And they think, well, mom and dad are like that. They treat that person funny. Then it's okay. Yeah. I can treat them the same way because mom and dad do it. Well, you know, when we used to go and play with these little girls, they didn't care. All they cared about was that they had a couple of friends. That's all my sister and I cared about, was that we had a couple of friends. Let's go play. So we did, we played, we had lots of fun. There was a nun there who had been watching this, and she came over and she said, oh no, you can't play. Nobody else is allowed to come and play, so you guys can't come and play. Well, that was a lie, because the teacher wanted kids to play with his kids. I mean, there's no other kids around there except the kids in residential school. So I know he liked us being there. We never got told to go, we were fine. I could never figure that one out. You know, here's a 5-year-old brain or a 6-year-old trying to, like, I knew these kids liked me, but here's this adult telling me that they didn't like me. So she said, you know, you're not allowed to play with them anymore. Nobody else can, so you're not allowed to. So we did what we could to stay away. Well, one day we went out and we saw the kids outside. They called us, they said, come and play. Okay, so we went to play with them. And we were having one heck of a good time, right? Well, all of a sudden I look up, and here's the nun marching over to us, madder than hell, you know. And I'm like, oh boy, we're in trouble. And we were. She made us go inside, and back then, I don't know if they still have them now, but there was like a wooden, it was about this thick, I guess. It was like a ball on a string. And
Oh, like, I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. You go like this and they go, right?
yeah, or it had one ball, but it was a wooden paddle, similar to a ping pong
Oh, so
paddle.
like one of those.
Yeah, those things. Okay, you know, like they're similar to a ping pong. Well, that's what we had in there, and so she made us line up. She made me and my sister stand up, and she's like, okay, one of you is going to get a strapping for this. And we were going to get spanked because we were playing with these kids. So, of course, the first thing that got put in my mind was, well, you can't play with white people because you're going to get in trouble. It's not that I didn't like them. It's not that I had.
What was drilled into your head?
If I play, I'm going to get struck. So racism was put into our heads, and we had no idea what it was. All I knew was if I played with a white kid, I was going to get in trouble. You know, so stay away from the white kids. Here's the white kids probably thinking, well, why aren't any of these kids playing with me? They must not like me. And that wasn't even the case. It was nuns who go to church every Sunday and, you know, ask for forgiveness, who were telling us we couldn't be friends with these kids. So she spanked my sister, or she asked us which one wanted to take the spanking. But my sister she was younger than me, so I said, I will. So I stood there, and the other thing we never did was cry. We were like, nope,